You check your bank account. The numbers haven't changed, but your ability to survive has. The money is dying. They call it inflation. They frame it as a natural economic weather pattern, an inevitable side effect of a bustling global economy. The truth is far darker. Inflation is not weather. It is a highly engineered, silent mechanism designed to siphon your wealth. Governments cannot simply take half your paycheck directly without inciting a riot, so they steal it quietly, right out of your pocket. The trick is ancient. Rome, the 3rd century. The empire is overextended, drowning in debt from endless military campaigns and bureaucratic rot. Emperors faced a mathematical impossibility. They could not tax the populace any harder. Their solution became the foundation of modern central banking. They began to recall the pure silver denarius. When the coins were reminted, base metals like copper were secretly melted into the mix. The numbers stamped on the coins stayed the same, but the purchasing power plummeted. The citizens were robbed without a single legionnaire breaking down their doors. Fast forward to the modern era. The forge has been replaced by the printing press and now the digital ledger. The theft is exponential. When a central bank conjures trillions of dollars out of thin air, they are not creating wealth, they are diluting yours. Think of the money supply as a glass of pure juice. The government keeps pouring water into it. Soon you are just drinking water. This is the invisible tax. It targets your savings, your wages, and your future, transferring that stolen purchasing power directly to the state. But it doesn't stop there. The second trick involves a sleight of hand that convinces you debt is your ticket to freedom. The system actively penalizes the saver. If you leave your money in a vault, inflation consumes it. You are forced to gamble it to survive. You push your stolen wages into the stock market, into real estate, desperately seeking refuge. You pump up the bubbles the governments created. When those bubbles inevitably pop, the massive institutions are bailed out with newly printed money. You are left holding the ashes. They socialize the massive losses for the elite and strictly privatize the financial devastation for you. It is a flawless machine of wealth extraction. They use the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, to lie to you directly. They routinely change the mathematical formula to hide the true rate of inflation. If beef becomes too expensive, they swap it for chicken in the index. They confidently claim your cost of living is stable while you eat less. This psychological manipulation is completely by design. If you realized how fast you were actually sinking, you would panic. So they tell you you're floating. The third trick is the interest rate trap. They lower rates to absolute zero, offering you incredibly cheap credit. They beg you to borrow. You buy the house you can barely afford. You finance the car. You shackle yourself to monthly payments, becoming entirely dependent on the system. Then they spring the trap. They aggressively raise the rates. The cost of your debt skyrockets, while the value of your assets plummets. They engineer these boom and bust cycles purposefully, and in every single cycle, massive wealth transfers from the middle class directly to the top. You are not poor because you don't work hard enough. You are broke because the game is rigged at the foundational level of the currency itself. Look at the stark history of fiat currencies. There have been thousands throughout human history. Every single one has eventually gone to zero. They want you obsessively focused on political theater. Left versus right. A manufactured distraction to keep you from ever looking at the central bank. While you angrily argue over the crumbs, they are quietly resetting the entire financial table. The digital currencies they are building now are the ultimate cage. Programmable money means they can arbitrarily dictate exactly where you spend, when you spend, and if you are allowed to participate in the economy at all. The transition is happening quietly right in front of you. The old money is dying, and the new money is a powerful surveillance tool. The fourth trick is the illusion of choice. You cast your vote for different leaders, believing a change in administration means a change in financial reality. But the printing press never stops, regardless of who sits in the highest offices. The true, terrifying economic power remains entirely unelected and untouchable. Look closely at the architecture of the world's central banks. They are intentionally built like colossal fortresses, physically and psychologically impenetrable to the public. Deep inside these fortresses, a handful of individuals sit at large wooden tables and decide the exact future value of your daily labor. You have absolutely no say. They construct a verbal moat to keep you out. Then they use complex, impenetrable jargon, quantitative easing, reverse repos, yield curve control to mask simple theft. It is intentional, weaponized obfuscation. If they simply admitted they were printing billions to buy their own debt, the public would instantly revolt. The fifth trick is the escalating war on physical cash. They actively frame paper money as dangerous, dirty, or the exclusive tool of dark market criminals. But physical cash is your last remaining sanctuary of financial privacy. It is the only transaction method left that leaves absolutely no digital fingerprint for them to track. By forcing you into a completely cashless digital system, they gain absolute omniscience over your existence. Every coffee, every book, every mile you travel is instantly logged. If you step out of line, if you dissent, an automated algorithm can sever your access to the global economy in a fraction of a second. Look back at history. Every totalitarian regime required absolute, unquestioned control over the daily economic lives of its citizens to maintain its grip. Today, they do not need secret police to physically confiscate your property. They just need to freeze your digital wallet and watch you starve. The sixth trick is inflation as a calculated solution to sovereign debt. Governments owe trillions of dollars they can never mathematically repay through taxes. They cannot default honestly because the interconnected global financial system would instantly shatter into dust, destroying their own power base. So they default dishonestly. They aggressively print the currency to pay the massive debt, and purposefully destroying the purchasing power of the currency itself. The bondholders are paid back in full, exactly as promised, but the newly printed money they receive buys only a fraction of what it used to. You pay for this silent default. You pay for it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and in your rapidly plummeting standard of living. The seventh trick is the weaponization of the tax code. They consistently convince you that higher taxes are a moral imperative for the greater societal good. Yet, the largest multinational corporations and the ultra-wealthy use incredibly complex legal structures to slip through the net and pay effectively nothing. The tax code is not designed to redistribute wealth downward. It is a highly engineered, labyrinthine trap designed exclusively to catch the working middle class. You are the heavy stone foundation holding up their golden pyramid. They extract just enough to keep the system running, but never enough to let you escape. If you try to build wealth outside their approved, rigged casinos, they instantly hit you with capital gains taxes, penalties, and endless, suffocating regulations. The eighth trick is the dangerous myth of the safe haven. They confidently tell you that government bonds are the safest, most secure investment on earth. But a government bond is simply a written promise to pay you back in a currency they have unlimited, unchecked power to debase at will. It is the ultimate con. You lend them your hard-earned purchasing power today, and they guarantee to return it to you utterly diluted tomorrow. In an era of structurally high inflation, holding a so-called risk-free government bond is mathematically guaranteed to destroy your true wealth slowly over time. The ninth trick is the systemic manipulation of gold and silver. For thousands of years, physical precious metals were the ultimate, undeniable check on government power. Because they cannot print gold, they use endless paper derivatives to artificially suppress the price, keeping you entirely distracted by volatile digital assets. They hoard the physical gold in massive, heavily guarded underground vaults, all while publicly telling you it is merely a barbarous, useless relic of the past. Watch exactly what central banks do, not what they say. Right now, in the shadows, They are buying physical gold at historic, unprecedented levels. The 10th trick is the corporatization of human knowledge. They transformed education from a path of enlightenment into a lifetime debt sentence. They guarantee the loans with government backing, instantly removing any incentive for universities to control their costs. The price skyrockets indefinitely. You step into the workforce not as a free citizen, but as an indentured servant to the state, owing a debt that cannot even be discharged in bankruptcy. This ensures you remain desperate, compliant, and unwilling to take risks. A population crippled by early debt is a population easily managed. The 11th trick is the commodification of your survival. The medical industry, protected by deep regulatory moats, holds your biological existence for ransom. They deliberately create an opaque pricing system. You cannot shop for a cure while you are bleeding, so they charge you whatever they desire. When sickness strikes, a lifetime of careful saving can be utterly obliterated in a single week of intensive care. The 12th trick is the retirement mirage. They created the concept of a pension to ensure your lifelong loyalty to the corporate machine. But the math is breaking. Demographics are shifting. The funds that hold your future are quietly investing in the exact same toxic sovereign debt that is mathematically doomed. They will slowly raise the retirement age until you simply die at your desk. The promise of rest is constantly pushed just beyond the horizon. The 13th trick is the stock buyback mechanism. They convince you the stock market is a reflection of economic health. It is not. Corporations borrow newly printed, zero-interest money to buy their own shares. This artificially inflates the stock price and triggers massive executive bonuses. No new factories are built. No new innovations are funded. It is pure, unadulterated financial engineering designed to extract wealth before the collapse. When the music stops and the stock crashes, the executives keep their bonuses. You, the retail investor, absorb the devastating losses. The 14th trick is the fractional reserve banking system. When you deposit your money in a bank, it doesn't stay there. They are legally allowed to lend out your money 10 times over. They create new credit and charge interest on money that never existed in the first place. If everyone went to the bank tomorrow to withdraw their funds simultaneously, the entire system would implode in an instant. The vaults are empty. And the system relies entirely on your blind faith. They constantly project an aura of total stability to prevent the psychological panic that would expose the fraud. The 15th trick is the consolidation of property. They tell you that you will own nothing and you will be happy. Huge corporate landlords, armed with infinite cheap credit from the central banks, are buying up entire neighborhoods of single-family homes. They outbid you purely because their cost of capital is effectively zero. They are turning a nation of sovereign homeowners into a permanent underclass of renters. When you rent, you build zero equity. You are simply paying off the corporate landlord's debt, transferring your daily labor directly into their expanding empire. The 16th trick is the manipulation of crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Whether it is a war, a pandemic, or a financial collapse, they immediately use the panic to justify printing massive new sums of currency. They claim the printing is emergency relief to save you, but the vast majority of those funds flow directly to the largest corporations and political insiders. The crisis is merely the catalyst for the greatest wealth transfers in human history. Every emergency leaves the middle class poorer and the elite infinitely wealthier. The 17th trick is the digital ID linked to Central Bank Digital Currencies, the absolute final enclosure of your freedom. With a CBDC, money ceases to be a bare asset. It becomes a programmable voucher, entirely dependent on your ongoing social compliance. If you protest, if you buy the wrong items, or if you simply try to save too much, they can put an expiration date on your money. Spend it by Friday or lose it forever. It is the ultimate tool to force consumption and ensure absolute obedience to the system. The 18th trick is the quiet war on the informal economy. Garage sales, cash tips, local bartering. They despise any human transaction they cannot track, heavily tax, or completely control. The 19th trick is the insidious trap of universal basic income. They will present it as a compassionate, utopian lifeline when their engineered inflation and automation inevitably destroy millions of jobs. But this income is not freedom. It is absolute, unbreakable dependency. When the state provides your only means of biological survival, you can never afford to disagree with the state. The 20th trick is the weaponization of convenience. They masterfully convinced you to trade your absolute financial privacy for the fleeting ability to tap a piece of plastic at the grocery store. The 21st trick is the algorithmic credit score. It was never truly about your simple ability to repay a loan. It was the beta test for measuring your total obedience to the financial system. The 22nd trick is the intentional, systematic suppression of true financial literacy. They will eagerly teach you trigonometry and cellular biology, but never, ever how a central bank actually creates money. This is no accident. Henry Ford once said that if the average citizen understood the banking system, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Ignorance is their most heavily guarded asset. The 23rd trick is the grand illusion of the middle class. The post-war economic boom was a historical anomaly, fueled by unique demographic conditions they have no intention of repeating. We are rapidly reverting to the historical norm, a tiny, untouchable class of ultra-wealthy lords and a massive, struggling class of indebted serfs. Only now it is techno-feudalism. The 24th trick is the financialization of the natural world. Water, farmland, even the very air you breathe is being chopped into complex derivatives and traded by high-frequency algorithms. They strip the physical world of its intrinsic, life-giving value, transforming the earth itself into a speculative casino where only the largest institutions ever win. The 25th trick is the myth of perpetual economic growth. The entire debt-based fiat system demands infinite, an uninterrupted expansion on a planet with strictly finite resources. When the physical limits of reality are finally reached, the system must violently cannibalize itself. It always begins by eating the life savings of its most trusting, vulnerable citizens. The 26th trick is regulatory capture. The massive banks do not fear the government regulators. The banks are the regulators. They personally write the laws that govern their own crimes. It is a seamless revolving door of power and corruption. The man who issues a trivial fine to the bank on Tuesday is sitting comfortably on their board of directors by Thursday. The 27th trick is the engineered distraction of the digital metaverse. As the physical world becomes too violently expensive and miserable to endure, they offer you a digital opiate. You are encouraged to be a digital billionaire in the virtual void, perfectly content while eating synthetic, lab-grown rations in a rented micropod in the real world. The 28th trick is the relentless attack on independent income. They deeply despise the freelancer, the small business owner, the truly self-reliant individual who operates outside their corporate structure. They utilize suffocating, impossible bureaucracy and endless taxation to drive the small competitor into the ground, ensuring massive corporate monopolies are your only option for survival. The 29th trick is the predetermined, inevitable introduction of a new Bretton Woods. When the current fiat system finally collapses under its own mathematical weight, they will act entirely surprised. They will present a perfectly timed, a pre-packaged solution, a unified, programmable global digital currency. They will graciously offer to wipe away your insurmountable debts, but it is the ultimate, final bait and switch. The financial crisis they intentionally engineered will be the exact justification for the total, inescapable control they always desired. The 30th trick is convincing you that this corrupt system is permanent. They want you to believe that resisting is utterly futile, that the end of financial history has arrived. But history is a vast, unmerciful graveyard of arrogant empires, greedy central planners, and failed fiat currencies. The mathematics of infinite debt cannot be outsmarted by a printing press forever. The absolute tipping point is rapidly approaching. The deep structural cracks in the foundation are widening, completely visible to anyone who simply refuses to look away. You cannot save their dying system, and you should not try. But you can ruthlessly save yourself. You must step entirely outside their rigged casino. You must secure tangible, unprintable wealth. Physical gold, productive land, specialized, undeniable skills, these are the only assets that survive the brutal collapse of empires. You must become your own unbreakable central bank. You must build parallel economies, actively trading pure value for pure value, entirely outside the dark reach of their digital ledger. The grand illusion is shattering in real time. The money is dying, but the historical truth is finally coming to brilliant light. The only question remaining is whether you will act. Your financial freedom is not going to be peacefully handed to you by a politician or a central banker. It is something you must fiercely, unapologetically claim for yourself before the vault doors permanently lock. They won't teach you this in school. They won't frame it this clearly on television. But history leaves fingerprints everywhere. If you're the kind of person who notices patterns, subscribe. And tell me, have you started seeing them too?